morning, Yankee fans. This is the Pinstripe Chronicles. I am Uncle Tats. I am here with Donald and Rob as always. And
did we seriously lose to the
we
A's?
seriously lost. Like I said, working nights, I don't usually when I get home, most games are over. Right? So I actually like the West Coast trips where everybody else is saying, now I got to stay up late. And I apologize on behalf, because if you stayed up late to watch that game, you deserve, some compensation from the Yankees.
Oh yeah, you do. You deserve full compensation.
Yep. Emotional compensation.
Josh Donaldson's salary. You deserve Josh Donaldson's salary for watching that. Utter shit.
One run against the A's, and one of the worst. They say Tampa's a terrible ballpark. That ball, the A's, the Oakland Stadium there, it's just sad. I mean, it's got a foul territory the size of 3 parking lots at Yankee Stadium. They should not. How do you not score in that ballpark? How do you not score? Never mind the ballpark.
What's worse, the offense or that stadium?
How do you not score against that team? Really? That was just utter embarrassing. They should forfeit their checks from their at bats yesterday. It was just complete bullshit.
Yep, agreed. Send it to charity.
Yeah, like I was saying, I don't get to watch a lot of games working nights. That's why I like the West Coast trips. I get home, I'm like, all right, it's still a tight game. They were putting not great at bats, but they were putting some good at bats together. And the game ends. I look over at my wife, and I'm like, seriously? 1 run? That's all they got? You've got to be kidding me. And the 1 home run was from Donaldson's home run. So now he's got, 7 home runs with 9 hits on the season. So if he doesn't hit a home run, that's he's not getting not getting a hit on his card. Stanton missed the goal.
Let's hear from our voice of reason, Rob. What are you thinking, my guy?
Well, Josh Donaldson's hit a home run in 6 losses this year, so nothing he does matters at this point.
Yep.
But even with his home run, you're like, okay, maybe that could be the turning point. His next 2 at-bats are 2 of the worst at-bats of the entire night. But I don't want to put this all on Josh Donaldson as much as I can't stand the guy. He actually did contribute, unlike anybody else in the lineup. Volpe had 3 hits, which is good to see. He's been red hot since eating some chicken parm. And that's it. I mean, McKinney didn't have a good night. DJ looks awful. Stanton looks awful. That's why the other day when you asked the question, do you think that their last game could have been a turning point, I was hesitant. I'm like, oh, man, that little sliver, and now it's flatlined again. Those 2 at-bats were Stanton's at-bat at the end of the game was horrible. And then you have the end of the 9th inning, you have Glaber gets on, you're like, okay, they got to be able to bring him in. Nothing. They could barely even move him over. Higgy strikes out to end the game, and you're like, this entire offense is – you have Rizzo who's getting back to normal. We just need to get that power swing back, but he's starting to look more like himself. You have Volpe who's turning it around. You have the occasional hot streak from Torres, and that's it. Like, I can't say Bowers because they always pinch hit for him late in the game, because if he's a lefty facing a lefty, they're not going to let him swing. Same thing for McKinney. So you have no offense. You have 2 catchers who can't hit. They're absolutely terrible at bats. You have to bring in a pinch hitter every single time for these catchers late in the game. It's so bad, and it's so bizarre this organization doesn't see it. And hopefully, this game kind of opens their eyes a little bit to say we might need to make something happen here. Obviously, they're not going to get Peraza up because he's still hurt. They're hoping he's back by Wednesday, I think is what Boone said yesterday. But as soon as he's healthy and gets a couple more games under his belt post-injury, they should bring him right up as soon as they can. They should get Florial up here as soon as they can. They have to try something. And I've been saying it for 2-3 weeks now. They have to try something different because this was never going to work. This whole thing without Aaron Judge was never going to work because you can't rely on Billy McKinney to be your offense. As good as he's been, you can't think he's going to keep that going. You can't say Jake Bowers carry us. We're not getting production from the guys that we're paying big bucks to, and they aren't trying anything different. And this is what you're seeing every single night. One run against Oakland should be fireable offenses for a lot of the people in this organization. Let's be honest here. The Oakland Athletics have won 20 games. They have 60 losses, or they have 21 wins now. They have lost 60 games already.
Yep.
Some teams don't lose when you're a good team, you lose 60 games in an entire season. We're in June and they have 60 losses. They're on a historically bad pace, along with Kansas City. Those are two of the worst teams in baseball. And you just scored one run against them. Like, I know Blackburn's not a bad pitcher and all, but you should have been able to at least scrape a couple more against him. His ERA was damn near 4 going into the start. So you couldn't get 3 runs and have won that game. Thankfully, I think Brito pitched well. Once again, the pitching kept us in this game, as it usually does. It was against a bad offense. He made a couple of bad pitches, but his last 2 starts have been really good. You couldn't scrape 2 more runs across against the Athletics? Are you kidding me? Like, this is what we're dealing with every single night. It's an unwatchable product, and it's so embarrassing to watch. And the fact that they're not doing anything about it is what makes it even more irritating. So remember Hal's question? I don't know why they're so mad. That's why we're so mad, Hal, because you're not doing anything to try to correct this before it becomes completely out of hand. We're lucky it hasn't gotten completely out of hand because we're still in this race. But when you watch your offense score a single run against the worst team in baseball, whether we're on the road or not, that's why the fans are angry. It's because you're not doing anything about it. You're not saying, all right, this isn't working. Let's try to get some new blood up here, some fresh faces. Maybe it'll help turn things around, balance out the lineup at the least. But you're trying the same tired offense every single night, hoping that it just clicks. It's not clicking. It hasn't clicked for an entire month now. Please open your goddamn eyes and try something else and get this thing back on track a little bit, because it's embarrassing.
Yeah. By the way, this offense isn't getting fixed. This offense, as currently constituted, isn't turning around. This is your offense. So that's why we're frustrated, because this is your offense. There is no upside to this offense. Even if DJ LeMahieu and Stanton get a little bit better, get a little bit more hot, there's still 2/3 of this lineup where you're struggling for any kind of production, and you can't survive like that. This whole roster was built around Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is the absolute be-all and end-all of this entire lineup, and that's a problem. And if you lose to the Oakland A's even one game, it's a complete disgrace, because this Oakland A's team is going to lose 120 games this year, at best. Right? They are one of the worst teams in not just in their franchise history, in the history of baseball. And the Yankees, who we've had our general manager talk and we've had our owner talk in the last week saying, oh, it's going to turn around. It's going to turn around. What is going to turn around? What is it that you see that's going to turn around? Anthony Volpe had 3 hits yesterday, and it made a blind bit of difference. Not a blind bit of difference, okay? Their love affair with Josh Donaldson, he got them a home run. What difference did it make? Not a blind bit of difference, okay? So, I mean, at this point, you only gave up 2 runs yesterday, and you still can't win? This thing isn't turning around. You got to make a change. You got to.
No,
now, Joe Sherman has an article saying that they need to cut ties with Josh Donaldson, and the fact that Aaron Boone sat him 3 games in a row prior to this Oakland series tells you everything about how Aaron Boone really feels about Josh Donaldson. Joe Sherman was like, don't listen to the words that he's saying. Watch his actions. Yeah. And his actions of pulling him, into his office and sitting him for 3 straight days tells you that he's not all in on Josh Donaldson. So the best thing for the Yankees to do is to eventually cut ties with him ASAP and call up Peraza. I mean, that's really the start. Okay, then you can have Peraza play third base with a little bit of DJ LeMahieu or vice versa, and then you work from there. That's a huge upgrade already, offensively anyway, in my opinion, and also in terms of the locker room, because I don't even think Josh Donaldson's particularly liked. No one likes him, man. No one likes him in baseball, and I don't think anybody particularly likes him in the Yankees. Apart from Brian Cashman, that's just because of his ego and that's because he can't admit he was wrong. So that's the first thing I would do. But this thing in general isn't getting fixed. This is your offense. This is your offense. This is your putrid offense, right? You're not going to get much upside from Willie Calhoun. He's shot, right? He's done, right? You'll maybe get a little bit of from Bowers, but he's not that good. He never will be. He never has been. So there's limited upside there. IKF is who he is, man. He's a role player. He's a very good role player, in my opinion. He's a very good backup. But he can't play every day. He's not that type of guy. He never has been. Never will be. So stop it. Right? What are you pin hitting for Higashioka? That can't hit. He's not good. He's not good on either side of the ball. Forget about it. Okay, so this team, you look at this roster, there's so many problems everywhere. This thing isn't going to get fixed. It's not going to get fixed this year. But the best thing they can do is to at least call up Peraza, give you some upside, and then if they want to maybe make a Band-Aid deal where they find a left fielder that can actually bring a little bit of power, a major league bat, not one of these minor league dudes, that can maybe give you 20 home runs, then you might be able to survive until Aaron Judge gets back. If he gets back, we don't even know.
If he gets back.
It doesn't look like it's anytime soon. We're probably looking at August, anything, if that. So it's bad, man. It's really freaking bad.
Yeah. Well, before I jump in, I just want to give a quick shout out to everybody in the chat. What's going on? Steve, Jonathan, Davey. We appreciate you guys in the comments. And Eli, right on cue. Always.
Hey, Eli. Good to see you, my guy.
So, Jonathan put this comment up saying how, Boone is a problem. As much as, believe me, we will never shy away from, getting on Boone's case. When you look at the roster construction and the way that these bats are hitting and the players that are in this lineup, I don't think we can push a lot of the blame on Boone.
You're right.
It's not like he's got a healthy lineup that he's, benching somebody.
He doesn't have a lineup.
They don't have. Yeah, I mean, Rizzo's been heating up. I think it's 13 or 14 straight games he's reached base. Volpe's starting to hit. Starting to find his way a little bit. We just don't. We're not utilizing the 40-man properly. Despite the injuries. Davey puts up, it's the ace pitcher look like a Cy Young against this disaster lineup.
And it is a disaster lineup.
It is a disaster lineup.
That's it, man.
And,
what can you do? What can Aaron Boone really have done yesterday? Right?
Nothing.
Every pitching move he made worked out, right? Yep. We only gave up 2 runs. Okay. If your offense can't score more than 1 run against the Oakland A's who are trying to lose, it's like watching the Major League movie where the owner wants their team to lose in order for them to sell and move, right? The Yankees apparently are trying to win, right? But which team looked like the Major League team last night? Because it sure as fuck wasn't the Yankees, right? So what can Aaron Boone really do, right? As we just went through that lineup sucks. It sucks, right? There's 3 Major League lockdown excellent hitters in that lineup. 2 of them can't hit right now. So, I mean, what can you do with one guy that can hit, right?
Nothing.
So, I mean, what can you do? There's nothing. The only thing that I can go, I mean, I hate to even defend Aaron Boone because he's so obnoxious when he talks.
Yeah,
it's so irritating, and he runs a holiday house basically. It's such a freaking lackadaisical, chill out. All is fine, kumbaya nonsense that he brings out. Yeah, I think it hurts us. I think it's probably cost us a bunch of games just with his attitude alone, right? I do agree with that. And so that's why I hate to even defend him. But let's be honest, he gets a bye this year because this team sucks. And it's all because of his freaking general manager who's lumbered him with a team that doesn't have a left fielder and the stupid infield nonsense, which was a problem last year, decided not to fix it this year. And the offense was being carried by Aaron Judge, but other than Aaron Judge, the offense sucked last year. But apparently, all is fine, and they just wheeled out the exact same team this year. Okay, so there's nothing that I can complain about Aaron Boone with. There's literally nothing. I just have to Just
Look at the lineup yesterday. Like, look at the averages. Look at the OPS. DJ's at a 668 OPS. IKF's a pinch runner, and he's playing second base, 633. Bader's 725. These are all below average. Rizzo's at a 796. Even that's technically below average, I think, because the average has gone up every year. Stanton, 621. Bauer, 770. Torres, 745. Like, he's middle of the pack. 641 for Donaldson. McKinney's at an 884, and that's actually going down. Volpe's up to 650, which still isn't good. Your catchers are a 561 to 593, and then your pinch hitter, Oswaldo Cabrera, is at a 529. What are we doing? Why? Look, and you mentioned the 40-man. Franchi Cordero's still on the 40-man roster right now for some reason, and they won't free up a spot for Florial, right? Just make that simple move. Get Cabrera back in AAA. Let him work on some stuff because clearly there's something wrong there, and they need to get him right because he was good last year. He wasn't great, but he was good, and you had some hope that he can be that Marwin Gonzalez type player for you. Not Ben Zobrist, but at least Marwin Gonzalez, who can play everywhere, get you some hits, switch hitting bat. He's got a role on a major league team, but he needs to get that bat going. They won't try anything different. They won't, and they look at this. You don't have a catcher that can hit. And I'm hoping Rortvet's off that 7-day IL soon because
but he's never been able to hit in his major league career either.
Yeah, but at least when he was up here, he had professional looking at bats.
I think our hope with the catcher department is actually Austin Wells.
I mean, they need to get into AAA first. They haven't even done that. Right? They won't even promote him, and he's killing it in AA. They won't even promote him. So I don't trust that they're going to be like, well, let's make the move here. If they won't even promote the guy who's killing it in AA to AAA yet, like, it seems like the only time they're moving players up is for the pitching side. Like we're seeing Beater get moved up and Will Warren got moved up. They're doing good with the pitching side. They're developing some really solid young arms that they'll probably end up trading for a bad player anyway down the line. But they won't call these hitters up to AAA to get them some at-bats. This way they can avoid the whole Volpe disaster from earlier this year where they call them up and they're like, we probably should have given him more at-bats. I don't know why they're not trying. Again, your lineup sucks. It's really, really bad. What could Aaron Boone have done? Grab a bat himself? You can't
preferable to Josh Donaldson.
Yeah, and that's the only guy that produced the run yesterday. So, like, this is what we're dealing with here. Your entire lineup.
Man, thank you so much for watching, man. How you doing? You have a professional level team when you lose to the A's. It was a professional loss. We got to get you on, Chicken Man. Got to hit us up. We'll get you on one day.
No, it goes to I think a lot of the hesitation. Again, odd thoughts pop into my head at the most opportune times. But I'll ask you guys this question: do you think that a lot of the hesitation on the offensive side is because they already called him Volpe, and you saw that he went through some struggles like any rookie would, right? Do you think that that's why they're hesitant to bring other guys up because they don't want to feel like they're rushing these guys? They'd rather sink. They'd rather have the whole ship sink than bring up another rookie or another prospect that is going to that could have some struggles where they'll look like fools for not moving these guys.
Well, we're talking about two players. One who they've already called up. Last year, and at some point this year, they let him play almost every single day. So I don't know why they're afraid to do it now when he's actually hitting. I get that he's dealing with an injury, but when he was healthy, they still didn't call him up. So that's one thing that's bizarre. The other is Florial, who hasn't been given an actual opportunity to get consistent at-bats. He hasn't looked good at the major league level, but he also has less at-bats than Volpe has this year. And that's over like a 3-year span where they just don't give Florial opportunities. So why not? I mean, if you're watching your offense right now where nobody's hitting, what's the worst that can happen?
Here, man? What is the worst?
Yeah.
I mean, the worst thing that can happen with rookies is they at least learn and provide you some upside. There's zero upside to what they're doing with losing with retreads and journeymen. As I've repeatedly said, there is no upside to that. And I would much rather be in a position where we have young kids who are learning on the job that can maybe provide you something in the future. And at least you are working towards something. And if we do happen to lose along the way, that's fine because at least you're building towards something. I could live with that. I would. It's so much better than this, which is treading water, and taking on water and swallowing far too much water with a bunch of journeymen and retreads who are going to get you nowhere. You learn nothing from this. What are we learning from this? Nothing. We just know that this is a bad roster, badly put together, with too many egotists up at the top. That's all that I've learned. I've not learned anything about this Yankee team. I mean, why would you be losing with guys who you know aren't going to be a part of this moving forward? What's the point?
Yep.
I just don't see the point. McKinney's not going to be here long term. Bowers is definitely not going to be here long term. Calhoun, give me a frickin' break. They're not going to be here long term. What's the point? Higashioka, he's not going to be here long term. What is the point? There's no point in this. It's like playing games just for the sake of it. What's the point in putting your money into it? What's the point in spending 3 hours of your time watching it? None of these guys are going to be here next year or moving forward. Waste of time.
It is a waste of time. And I like this comment here from Davey. You know, the problem is the Yankees have the power hitting mentality, hit a home run or strike out. Problem 2, if they look at analytics, I don't know what they're looking at because they certainly are missing. Problem 3 is prospect hugging. You know, problem 4, signing the wrong free agents. Davey, you nailed it. You know, and it's something that, you know, we've been saying on this channel for a long time, you know, and a lot of other, you know, of the streaming channels that we're all friends with. We all say the same thing. This team is, you know, fundamentally flawed, and it's been that way for the last, I would say, 10 years, maybe even more.
Oh yeah.
You know, trying this plug-in mentality with these, you know, with these free agents, or making trades for veterans, picking up bad contracts, you know, getting fleeced in deals, having to get. Actually, I don't want to say the Yankees have ever been fleeced. We've had to overpay, but I don't think we've been fleeced. There's nobody we've given up that's like, you know, tearing it up and going to the Hall of Fame. But we have had to overpay.
That Joey Gallo trade's really hurting right now. Duran's doing great.
No, I love Duran's great. No, I have no problem. But you know, it's not like it's not like, you know, they're getting rid of guys that's like that was our next, you know, big superstar. You know, I don't think that there's been that player. There have been solid players that we've given up, but it's not like, you know, when we made the trade for Gallo, he was a player that we, you know, these are players that there's been a selection of fans that have wanted these moves to happen. We, you know, when we missed out on Castillo, we wanted Montas. You know, the trade sucked. You know, I think the only trade that we really can collectively say should never have happened, we didn't want it to happen, was the Donaldson trade.
Man, we got fleeced in that one.
We go really fleeced.
They bent us over. I'm not even going to finish that statement. You know what I'm.
I was going to say that I stopped myself, but I like the rub when powered on.
Look, the thing is, like, even with the Gallo trade, it's very. You can bring that up right now because a lot of people will say, well, why aren't they calling up Florial? Why aren't they giving him a shot? What is he doing wrong in AAA? And everyone will say, well, he strikes out too much and he hasn't improved on it. 2 years ago, the same team, the same owner said, do whatever it takes to get Joey Gallo, who is notorious for striking out. And so now they won't call up this guy because even though he's like top 3 in every offensive category in your minor league system right now, you're not calling him up because he strikes out, although his on base is through the roof, his slugging is through the roof, his OPS is through the roof, his average is through the roof. Everything is good, but because he strikes out, you're not going to give him a shot. Like, that's such a broken mentality because you brought in Josh Donaldson who strikes out. You have Giancarlo Stanton who strikes out. You have Aaron Judge who strikes out. What can, and again, it's such a stupid. Yeah,
I can answer it for you. I can answer it for you. Cashman doesn't like him. And if Cashman doesn't like someone, he will not give them a chance.
Yeah. Because
when he did call him up, he gave him about 2 at-bats and then sent him down again. So, like, and then what did they do? He DFA'd him. So, okay, he brought him back, but he DFA'd him. He is not going to give a chance to someone who he DFA'd because there's no upside to Cashman with his ego. Could you imagine if Florial goes and bats 300? Then we're going to be like, why the hell did we DFA him? Right? Then Cashman looks like an idiot. So he'd much rather just stick him down in AAA and just let him rot down there and hope someone picks him up, because he is not going to want to have him show him up. And I think it's the same thing with Peraza. I think it's out of spite now. He just doesn't like Peraza for whatever reason. Because Peraza should have been up here long before this.
No, I think with Peraza, he put this protective bubble around them. Because he has given Peraza a shot. It was a poor shot, big shot. Not every prospect that gets called up gets to start in the postseason, right? So even though it was very short,
right? But what option did he have? IKF proven that he can hit in the post. He couldn't play shortstop. It was more out of fan pressure, because remember, there was a huge outcry. Why isn't Peraza up? Why isn't Peraza up? Why isn't Peraza up? And every time that they didn't do it, fans were up in arms. So they just finally caved. But remember, when he did get called up, and everyone was like, great, we got ourselves a shortstop. What was the first thing that Aaron Boone said? We don't have a plan for him. He's just going to be sitting here and he's going to learn on the job. He's going to sit and going to learn from IKF, right? So that basically said everything. They had no plan for him when they called him up. So they gave him a shot only in name, not by action. And yeah, he got a playoff start, but that was only because IKF proven that he couldn't play shortstop anymore. And it was such a liability out there that they had to bring in a shortstop. It wasn't because they wanted to. So I'm sorry, they never gave Peraza a chance. They never have.
Yeah.
They never did. No, and you're absolutely right. And you remember last year, they called up Cabrera and Florial and said, we're looking for a spark. And then they sat Florial after like 2 games. Yeah. And then he barely played. Yeah. That was the spark. And then Peraza was a September call-up, and they didn't use him, like Donald just said. They didn't have a plan for him. And then they finally used him like the last 2 weeks or whatever it was, week and a half, and he was tearing the cover off the ball. Yep. He was hitting 300. And he got a playoff start, and he actually played well. He had decent at-bats.
And he got benched.
Yeah, he got benched the next game. So, like, that's not a fair shot. That's textbook Yankee handling of prospects. It's terrible what they do to these kids. And the fact that he got hurt in the minor leagues and when he should have been up here, that's, again, another issue. Like, you should have had him up here, and maybe he doesn't get hurt. He could have been producing for the major league team, or at least learning as he goes along, the same way Volpe has had to learn. Instead, he's been killing AAA pitching that he already knows how to beat, and he got hurt, and he's getting hurt. And now you got to wonder if he's going to be healthy or not. Who knows if it's – because they say, well, we think he's going to be back Wednesday. Well, they said 3 days ago they feel like he's going to be back in the lineup, and it hasn't happened yet. So even AAA, they don't know about injuries. It's just – it's so annoying. This all could have been avoided if they just said, Josh Donaldson, you're not helping us win. We're going to go with the youth. We're going to go with the upside. Peraza's already played third. Even if we want to play him at second, we have DJ that can play third, and they didn't do it. And that's why, again, that's why fans are mad, because there's so many things that other teams in baseball would do. Give other players a shot when you're clearly in need of help at the major league level. You're going to call up people that are hitting well in AAA just to try to provide the spark, and they won't do it. You just lost a game to the Oakland Athletics where you scored a single run, and they will probably not make a move to go in tonight's game. We'll probably see the exact same lineup going into tonight's game. Maybe IKF starts or something, or Higgy starts at catcher. Great. We're going to have such a big night offensively. Probably not. If we score 3 runs, I'll be happy. And maybe that's enough for a win. I don't know. But they won't do anything differently. This is why the fans are mad, because we knew when Aaron Judge got hurt, this offense was going to struggle, because we've struggled last year without him. Even when he was hitting, the rest of the lineup couldn't. We struggled when he got hurt earlier this year. And guess what? We're struggling with him now. Unless Stanton and LeMahieu and Torres all get hot at the same time, along with Rizzo and now Volpe, then we might seeing a consistent, at least a better looking offense. But right now you're not getting that. Stanton looks completely lost, as bad as I've ever seen it. Same thing with DJ. until they break out of it, this is what you're going to be getting. 1, 2, maybe 3, the occasional 4 or 5 run game every 10 games or so. But this is your offense. It's bad. Really, 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 really bad. Yeah, it's not changing. And they won't do anything to try and change it. They don't need to make a desperation trade right now because, to an earlier point that L.I. made in the comments, there really isn't nobody out there yet. You have to wait until a team falls out of the race, unless you go to a team like Washington and say, what's it going to take to get Lane Thomas? But he's a right-handed bat. Or maybe Candelario, but he's a third baseman that we don't need. So there really aren't any options out there. See, why not try, get Peraza healthy, get him up here, see what Florial can do for you, and maybe it'll work. But it can't be worse than what you're doing. That's the whole point. Where none of us are saying that we're going to score 7 runs a game now because Florial and Peraza are here. None of us are saying that. Yeah. But it can't be worse than what you are trotting out there on a nightly basis when you're scoring a single run against the worst team in baseball. How can it get worse?
No, and, it was mentioned in the comments. Davey brought it up. He doesn't mind if you don't like Florial and Peraza. Not a problem. Trade them or at least get some value back. They already tried, getting rid of Florial. Nobody picked him up. That's why he ended up back with the Yankees. So if you can't dump him, just use him because he's tearing it. He's doing fine in AAA. But for some reason, they don't want to make, like you pointed out, Ron, they'll make a million adjustments for the pitching, but they will not make any, which is not a problem. The offense is a major problem, and they won't make any adjustments. And yet, we have no right to be frustrated. The owner wants to call us out that we're spoiled little brats. No,
I mean, you're right, man. But Davey's got a point here in terms of even more than that. It's just like, if you don't like someone, why aren't you going into the trade market to bring in someone you do like? And that's been an issue with Brian Cashman for a while now. We only have to go back as far as Clint Frazier, right? It was clear the organization didn't like him. They turned him into shuttle bus Clint. Well, he was up and down from Scranton on basically a daily basis. They never gave him a shot. They clearly didn't like him. They thought he was an asshole, right? Well, why not trade him? Because they got multitude of offers, especially when he was the legendary bat speed that he had, right? They could have commanded a gigantic package in return for Clint Frazier in his first couple of years. But the Yankees sat, and they sat, and they sat, and they just refused to do anything. And that saying, shit or get off the pan, that is a big thing with Brian Cashman because he just does in between. He just sits there. He doesn't make a decision. If you don't like someone, fine, make the most of their value and get them out of here and bring in someone you do like that does have a future here. But there's absolutely no point in just sitting going, oh, we'll just keep him just in case shit. What good does that do, right? So what happened with Clint Frazier? DFA'd. And Duhar, right? What happened when he almost won Rookie of the Year in his first year, right? The Yankees didn't have a position for him, right? So they basically moved him all over the frickin' infield, trying to find a position for him, right? Then tried him in the outfield, right? But they didn't have a position for him, didn't have a plan for him, so they stacked him in AAA. And then he became a shuttle bus and Duhar. Up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. No plan, right? And even as soon as a couple of years ago, when he was getting regular at-bats in left field, Brian Cashman said he's gotten multiple offers, trade offers for him, right? But he didn't trade him. Why not? Right? What happened when Duhar? You got DFA'd. What's the point?
You got nothing out of it.
Trade them to get some value back. You can't just keep a hold of them. What good does that do? It makes no freaking sense. And they do this with every single prospect. Gary Sanchez, right? It was clear that he didn't have a future as a Yankee and towards the end of his Yankee career, right? It was clear, right? And then there was a trade offer that came in. JT Realmuto, right? Could have gotten JT Realmuto in exchange for Sanchez. Didn't do it. Sanchez's value goes right down. Ended up trading with Josh Donaldson. Disastrous trade. So, everything that they do is so bad. And that's the way that they handle prospects, man. They're not fluid. They have their set plan, right? And it only works according to when they want it to work, right? They don't go fluid, right? So, for instance, if Peraza comes up last year, right? hits the cover off the ball, plays perfect defense, the Yankees would never deviate from their plan. They wouldn't just go, right, okay, well, maybe this guy is our shortstop. Let's give it a go. They don't do it because it's not their plan, right? Their plan all along was Volpe. So Peraza can go F himself was basically what Brian Cashman was telling us. And that's why they don't develop prospects, because they're not fluid. They don't actually figure, hey, you know what? Let's change our plan, right? This plan is now fluid. This guy's actually surprising us. Maybe he's ready. Maybe he's the future. They don't do that. They're hard and set. They're coming up when we want them up, and that's it. And that's why they don't develop prospects, because they're not fluid. Other organizations are fluid. Other organizations are like, you know what? This guy's actually doing really well. We're going to give him a shot, and then give them a proper shot, right? It saves tons of money in free agency and trades, right? Because they're learning, and you learn something from prospects. You don't learn anything from the Bowers and the Willie Calhouns and the Corderos of this world.
No, you're right. And go back, even with Andujar, he was very unlucky that he got hurt, and Urshela just stole the job from him. Like, you can't really blame the Yankees necessarily for trying to change positions, but they should have moved him right then and there, because it's like, okay, well, Gio is here. He's playing great defense. He's hitting the ball. We could probably get something for Andujar when he's healthy. They didn't do it. So they missed an opportunity there. Clint Frazier is the perfect example of how the Yankees handle prospects. He really is, because he was their top prospect after that trade in 2016. Brian Cashman says he's got legendary bat speed. And then they just didn't like him. And it's so weird. Like, what did he like? They made up rumors that he wanted the Yankees to unretire number 7 so he can wear it. That wasn't true. They were trying to spin this narrative that he was a prick, and all of a sudden, I don't know if the Yankees had plans for him. You could have had an outfield of Frazier, Judge, and Gardner for a while, and they didn't want to do it. Like, every time Frazier got called up, he hit. Every time for the first few years until he dealt with the concussion when he hit. Yeah, and that obviously screwed him up, which, you know, it's scary stuff. You can't really say that it was because he was a bad player. He's got his head was screwed up right after that. But before that, he was fine. He was hitting every time, and then they sent him down. You're like, what are you doing? This is your top prospect. This isn't like a guy in the minor leagues that's just hitting the ball kind of well that you can. All right, well, you're the shuttle guy. If we need you, we'll get you back. That's a top prospect that you did not trade for Garrett Cole. You held him out of a trade to get Garrett Cole in 2018. After that great 2017, you could have had an offseason of getting the MVP and Giancarlo Stanton and Garrett Cole in the same offseason. And you didn't do it. You held off on those prospects, and you didn't give Frazier an opportunity. And then you had a DFA him. Same thing goes, like you just mentioned. You broke it down perfectly. But that is the perfect example of what they do to prospects, and they've been doing it every single time. The only players that you can say they didn't do that to were Aaron Judge and Gleyber Torres, and now Anthony Volpe. Because when Judge came up, they let him play, and he sucked in 2016. Remember that. He was bad. But then what happened in 2017? He got the job and just tore the cover off the ball, and now he's the best player in baseball. They actually let him work through those struggles. Gleyber Torres came up for a first week or so, wasn't too good, but then got better, had a really good rookie season, had a great 2019, and then they screwed him up. Gary Sanchez was looking like the next big thing in 2016 and 17.
Destroyed that guy. That poor guy.
Screwed him up. They don't know how to handle prospects. That's why I said last week, I'm terrified what they're going to do when Dominguez is here, when Wells is here, Spencer Jones. All these guys are apparently part of their plans in the future. What are they going to do to them when they get up here? Are they going to treat them all like Volpe, or are they going to treat them all like Clint Frazier?
It's frightening. Well, they haven't held Volpe because they didn't notice that he had a massive hitch in his swing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who noticed it? Austin Wells, our 20-year-old double-A catcher, is a better hitting coach than our freaking employed hitting coach Dylan Lawson, right? Apparently, Aaron Boone and their million analytics guys that they hire didn't see in the video that, oh, he's got a hitch in his swing. Austin Wells pulled him up over chicken parm and was like, dude, you got a hitch in your swing. Fix it, right? And now Volpe's batting over 300 since that meeting, right? So maybe Austin Wells needs to be our hitting coach because he's doing a better job helping our team than our actual hired analytics people and hitting coach. It's a disgrace. It is a joke, right? So yeah, we could say Volpe, but I don't trust the Yankees with Volpe. I don't trust them because they didn't even notice he had a problem with his swing. So if they're not noticing Volpe as a problem with his swing, maybe they're not noticing that a bunch of our guys has a problem with their swing right now.
I called for his head when he makes the statement that he doesn't pay attention to the statistics.
No,
That's your fucking job. Look at the numbers. If you see this, if you see that a player's going into a slump and it's just getting drastically worse, you have to look at you have to be able to recognize that. Dylan has no desire to coach anybody.
no. What is he doing?
And I don't even think that's just that's the way the perception is. I think that's a fact. I don't think he has any interest in coaching. He just wants to sit there and be like, "Wow, he's head coach for the Yankees." Well, you know what? You are not living up to what you're supposed to be doing. So you should be shown the fucking door.
And the other three, because there's three of them. It's not just him. There's two other assistants. What do they do? Brad Wilkerson, who, what does he do? He's just an evil clone of Aaron Boone. I'm convinced of it.
Why do we need three hitting coaches?
And they're not doing anything. Yeah. What are they doing?
How do you have the hitting this bad when you have three fucking coaches?
Right, and who's our best hitter? Aaron Judge. He has his own hitting coach. He doesn't learn anything from those guys. He goes through his own thing in the offseason. I forgot what the guy's name is, but what does that tell you? The player that your entire offense, your entire team is based off of. Because if the Aaron Judge is playing, the Yankees are going to win a lot of games. When he's not, this is what you see. We're a barely above 500 team. And yet he's got his own hitting coach. But your answer was, let's bring in Brad Wilkerson, who says things like, well, he's hitting a professional 200. What does that mean? What does that mean? A professional 200? Is he getting unlucky? That's what he said about Volpe. When you say professional 200, that means he's getting unlucky. No, Volpe was having really bad at-bats. You can see it. He wasn't hitting. Now he's making contact. He's keeping two hands on the bat on his follow-through for a two-strike approach. He's making adjustments as he goes along. These are things you want to see. I don't think Dylan Lawson taught him that because this is all happening conveniently after Austin Wells pointed out there was something wrong in his swing. So what is the hitting coach doing? I don't care about the stats. You should care when you're in the bottom of the league in most of these categories, except for home runs. But if we were like a top 10 and we were just losing games because the offense was dealing with the Judge injury, you could be like, well, he's kind of got a point. We're still a good offense, just that we need to get him back, and a couple of guys are slumping. No, this has been the case all year without Aaron Judge. You're a bottom of the barrel offense without him. That's a pretty important stat to look at. That's the important stat to look at. And they're talking about with Josh Donaldson. So he's hitting the ball hard. He's still not doing anything to help you win. The guy's hitting below 140. Come on. What do we need to do? What more do they need to see out of some of these guys before they just say enough is enough? It's starting to slip. We need to fix something here. And the only answer you have right now is to give a couple of kids a shot. That's it. Because that trade that everyone's talking about is not out there. It's not out there yet. And it's not going to be for at least another 2-3 weeks at the least. Because there's too many teams in contention right now. You have to wait. Unless you go to a team like Washington, but they don't really have the kind of guy that we need. Or Oakland. Who do they have that we can use right now? No. None of those players are really available.
Please stop trading with Oakland, please.
Stop trading with Oakland. Can you make a surprise move with Chicago and get Luis Robert? You know what it's going to take to get him? People need to temper their expectations. The answer's not out there in the trade market, even if the Cubs fell out of it and Bellinger was available. Do you really think he's the one player who's just going to fix everything? No.
No, it comes down to it's the Yankees are not creative enough to make the right move. They're not smart enough to make the right move because they constantly deviate from the plan A. It all trickles back to the last deadline, right? Castillo was plan A, right? instead of going when Castillo left, they went to pitching plan B instead of the offense plan A. You know, it's they're not they're not thinking clearly. They're not they're just so pitching. But then you get bounced in the postseason because you can only put up 2 runs. And the pitching is only giving up 3 runs. But let's just keep improving the pitching. It's like they have no focus at all. And it goes to this comment from Steve from earlier in the show. Quite frankly, the way we're hitting, I'm not certain that adding Judge into the lineup is going to make all that much of a difference.
Well, we already saw it. We were a 3rd place team with Aaron Judge.
I just what I'm saying, where I think that he's onto something is there's no automatic fix. It's not like Judge is just going to automatically come back and everybody's just going to snap out of the slump. It gives us a better opportunity to put up runs. But if these guys aren't getting on base, how many at bat? You can only drive in runners if there's runners on base. So you just have to hope that everything goes back to the way it was. I don't know if that's a guarantee with the way that this offense looks at the plate.
What's scary is that we're in a better spot now than we were when he first got hurt. Like, we have Stanton back. We have Donaldson, I guess you can put him in there. He's healthy.
Bader back.
Yeah, Bader back. And they still can't hit. Like, when he first got hurt, we didn't have Bader, Stanton, Donaldson. We had nobody. We had Franchi Cordero playing. We had Willie Calhoun every day. Bowers was playing every day. Maybe not Cordero, but Cabrera had to play often. Hicks was playing almost every day. IKF. And they looked better. They looked better than they do now. And that's how bad Stanton has looked since he's come back. Like, he has been really bad. And he needs to get hot. He absolutely needs to get hot. DJ needs to get hot. And a lot of it's going to fall on their shoulders. These 3 guys that even put Torres in there, but Rizzo, Stanton, LeMahieu, they're all making a lot of money. And it's going to, you're 15 million, 20 million, 23 million. Like, that's a lot of money for these guys. Donaldson in the same category, he's making 25. He's making more than any of them. These guys got to start hitting.
Dude, this is exactly what their plan was. Just without Aaron Judge, but this is their full team. They wanted Bader, and they wanted Stanton, LeMahieu, and Rizzo, and they got all these guys to go Volpe shortstop. This is their plan. This was their team. If there's anything that's an indicator that Brian Cashman isn't the guy, is this right here, right? Because this means that the Yankees are 100,000 million% reliant on Aaron Judge. Because you take Aaron Judge out, and this is their full team, and they can't do jack, right? But we've got a full, really interesting debate going on here in the chat, so let's pick up on some of it. Steve Schumann says, Hal is not Steve Cohen. He is not a baseball guy. I don't believe that Steve Cohen is a baseball guy. I believe Steve Cohen is he's a fan of the Mets. I get it, but he's not a baseball guy.
The trust fund guy.
And he just spends a ton of money. He's a hedge fund guy, but he spends a ton of money. And it's not necessarily smart money because look at where the Mets are right now. He's got a below-average general manager, and they spent a crazy amount of money on guys that are in their 40s. So I'm sorry, I'm not looking longingly at the New York Mets. And also, Steve Cohen was pretty active on Twitter when things were looking good. Oh, he was Mr. Twitter guy, wasn't he? And where is he right now? Now that the Mets have completely flatlined?
He's calling a press conference today, finally.
Finally, right. That's because Hal Steinbrenner went and talked first. Hal Steinbrenner's been up front. I'm sorry. I'm not putting this on Hal Steinbrenner. Hal's put the money where his mouth was. He brought in Rodon. He brought in Aaron Judge. He did his job. He's taking the front and center. He's like, this is my responsibility as much as anyone else. He's doing his thing, right? I'm sorry, I can't blame Hal Steinbrenner. What more could he have done? They get a $400 million payroll.
$300 million is more than enough to win.
Exactly.
250 is more than enough to win.
Yeah. Where he gets to blame is he gave Cashman a new contract. That's his fault. Yeah. And Cashman's the one that put this roster together, and then gets praised for it because what? Because he put a few extra bucks in his pocket. By not going after a left fielder. No, Hal's got to take as much responsibility as anybody else because he is the guy. He's the owner. Everything starts from him. He sets the narrative. If nobody's going to be accountable at their jobs for this ineptitude, then the owner has to take the responsibility as well.
Well, I believe that Brian Cashman is the one who's responsible for putting this system in place. Because this is part of the debate here in the chat.
Yeah.
Dave says that it's actually the owner. I disagree with that. I mean, maybe that's the normal way businesses should work, but the Yankees have an odd where Brian Cashman holds probably more power than anyone else right now because he is the lone baseball guy in the front office. Now they've added a couple of guys, right? I get it this year, but prior to this year, it's been only Brian Cashman, right? Levine's not a baseball guy; he's a business guy. Hal Steinbrenner, a baseball guy. The Steinbrenner family, they're not really baseball people; they're great business people, right? That's why the plan was all along: give Brian Cashman the money and the reins to go and do his thing. He's got a big chief executive title. He's got the whole freaking title. The plan was for him just to run the show, right? And he's ran it straight into the freaking ground. So I'm sorry, that's not Hal Steinbrenner. It's his responsibility for giving a 4-year contract for flatlining the organization. But I'm sorry, it's Cashman who's built this thing.
Like the only thing you could say to Hal is like maybe he needs to step in and be like, look, you've got to change something or else there's going to be more changes here or something drastic's got to be done. But what more can you ask out of him? Because everyone for years after George was no longer the face of the franchise and it went to Hal and Hank and then eventually just Hal. Everyone for years, he's not his father. Oh, he's cheap. How can you say someone is cheap when they're giving out $250 million every single year or more to put a team on the field? That's not cheap. That is not cheap at all. He is not a cheap person. I'm so sick of that narrative. And I'm so sick of people saying that Steve Cohen is the new George Steinbrenner because you know what George Steinbrenner would have probably done if the Yankees were as bad as the Mets? Buck Showalter would have been fired. Epler might have been fired, but they're still there. I'm just saying I did applaud them for hiring both guys because I thought it was going to be a colossal disaster. So thank you for taking Billy Epler because a lot of people want him to take over for Brian Cashman. Thank God that didn't happen because Epler is somehow worse than Brian Cashman. But he's also Cashman's understudy.
There you go. I'm sorry. I've never hired anyone who's an understudy to Brian Cashman.
The only one that you would have taken in a heartbeat was Kim Ng. And Jeter stole her from under us. And good for him. And good for her because she's doing a great job. Look where the Marlins are. First place in the wild card. How about the Marlins? So give her some credit. She knows what she's doing. Smart baseball mind. And
Derek Jeter credit. He knew what he was doing. He got ripped.
He got her the hell out of here.
The Yankees mocked him behind his back. Brian Cashman certainly did. He was like, right, well, look what he's doing over in the Marlins. They didn't like him very much in Florida. Guess what? He actually put together a very good foundation. He just wasn't being backed, so he walked away. But he put a foundation together. He hired the best minds that the Yankees had, and certainly wasn't Brian Cashman. Just saying.
Yep. If they would have taken Jeter up on the state that they were in, because Jeter's like, all right, we built this foundation. Now let's open up and start bringing in some free agents and kind of put some guys around this core. They're like, no, they didn't want to spend the money. Jeter's like, if you're not going to compete, I don't want to have my name attached to it. I mean, how much of a fucking badass do you have to be? This is why Jeter is praised the way he is. I think Jeter is more like George than his son is. Because it's winning and breathing. That's all that matters to those two. So him getting Kim out of there was the best thing that ever happened to her career. Because the Yankees would have just fucking ruined her. Oh yeah. So it just goes. The problem, yes, Cashman is a big part of the problem. I'm not saying that it's all on Hal, but when we were trying to say that, look, the Cashman's deal ended, there was the chance to move on and bring in a new voice, maybe, hopefully, God willing, a new philosophy. But no, they just want to do rinse and repeat because Hal is comfortable having his cousin as the GM.
Yeah, you're right.
this is why the blame
The was Derek Jeter, hire him, and Jeter would have hired the guys to be a general manager. He wouldn't have been the general manager, but he would have overseen the thing. He would have been the director of baseball operations, something like that, and he'd hire the GM. Probably would have been Kim. And I think this Yankee team would have been a hell of a lot fresher and get the right priorities, because I don't think Cashman's priorities are the right way anymore. I'm not saying he's working against the Yankees. I'm just saying I don't think his priorities are purely baseball, purely for the Yankees to win a World Series. I think there's a lot of ego in there. I do. I think a lot of his decisions are, I don't want to make this move because it's going to make me look bad.
And look at the Marlins, like what they do. Like, they had a surplus of pitching, right? They had so many pitchers, even guys on the come up. Yuri Perez is lighting it up, right? He's still very young, a lot of room to grow. So what did they go and do? They traded Pablo Lopez to go and get Luis Arias, who's hitting 400. Like, he's hitting 400 right now. They had, and even though they had a ton of infielders, so they like, okay, we got Jazz Chisholm, we can move him. He said, I'll go play center. He's in center field now, and they're above 500. They're in a playoff spot when no one thought that would have been the case. So they're obviously doing something right, which is, calling up players when they need to be called up. They're not spending a ton of money either, and they're putting together a winning team. Yet we have guys that are making combined in our lineup what their payroll is, and we can't muster up 2 runs against the Oakland Athletics. Come on now. What does that tell you about this team's philosophy? Yeah. And I don't remember. I think might have been Davey. It said Hal just wants to win, not win championships or make profit. I think he wants to win because he knows how much money is to be made in the World Series. He always says the ultimate goal is to win a championship, and they failed in that goal. But he doesn't want to call every season a failure when you're able to win 100 games or make the ALCS. That's not a failure. You may have failed your ultimate goal, but the season you can't call making the ALCS a failure of a season. You can call your performance in the ALCS a failure. It was embarrassing, but the whole season was not a failure because you went further than almost every team in baseball. Only 2 more teams got further than you last year. There is something to be proud of there, but it shouldn't be that way every year where you're like, well, we can hold our heads high because we made it there. No, you should want to be better. You should be like, we got to go. Look, we're there. We're close. As bad as things were last year, we did make the ALCS. We're close. We got to make those moves to get that next step, to finally get past Houston, to get where we want to go. And that's where they didn't make those moves.
Yeah, because they rested on their laurels. They rested on the excuses. They're like, oh, the weather or the rain. And they didn't want to look at the real issues behind why they got swept. A sweep. If you get swept in the playoffs, it should incur changes. It really should, right? Because that means that there's something broken, right? But they didn't believe it. They believed that it was everyone else's fault, including the fans, not theirs. That's a big problem, man. But I do genuinely believe that Hal Steinbrenner does want to win. And by the way, a lot of the things that Hal Steinbrenner says, I agree with. Sorry. He believes in developing prospects. So do I. He believes that you don't need to spend $350 million to put together a winning product. So do I, right? And he believes in re-signing your best player, which he did, right? So, I mean, a lot of the things that he's done, I agree with. It's just, I don't think he has the stomach for the fight. That's my only criticism of Hal Steinbrenner. He doesn't have the stomach for when things aren't working out for him to stand up, channel his dad, because he does have daddy issues for 100%. He wants to criticize his dad at every turn, right? But he needs to put that aside, and I just don't think he has the stomach to really take a deep breath and go, oh, God, I'm friends with these guys, but I have to make this decision for the betterment of my organization. I got to get Cashman. I got to get Boone out. Got him out of here, right? He just doesn't want to do it, right? Because I think as much as a good businessman he is, and I do believe he's a Yankee fan, and I do believe he cares a lot, I just don't think he wants that fight. I just think he'd be much prefer just going, oh, you know what, they're trying, than really make that tough decision. And that's a big problem, man, because I'm sorry, any successful business, any successful sporting organization, they need to be able to face up to when they're doing wrong. And I just don't think they can do it.
No, it's
we're here treading water for the last 13 years.
It's it's only, like they said, it's business. You can't take everything so personal. Believe me, we're never shy about, if something goes wrong, we'll call each other out on it. And it's not that, oh, you don't like me anymore. It's no. There was a mistake made. 99.9% of the time it's me. And, you guys would be the first to be like, Tats, what the fuck are you doing? But, you got, there's a part where it just becomes about accountability, and we've had to make, some changes through the years, with the brand. We've made, and it wasn't because of any personal friendships or anything. It was business, Some people didn't take it that way. Whatever. That's very, very old news.
Some people might be in the septic tank.
Yeah, well, it's
we'll make that public.
But there has to be a point where if the change needs to happen to move forward, you make that change. That's the best way to wrap it up.
Right. And then again, I said this the other day. They didn't even have to fire him. They could have just let him leave as his contract expired and be like, "You did your job. Go off into the sunset. Do what you want to do. Go on a yacht. Go on a boat. Go fishing like Uncle Tats does.
Go GM the Mets. I don't give a fuck. Yeah. I really wouldn't have cared. If he went to the Mets, I wouldn't have cared.
No.
Not one bit.
Just because it's the same thing as, like, I don't care that Aaron Hicks is batting like 350 for the Baltimore Orioles. I don't care. I was done with him as a Yankee. And when you're done with someone as a Yankee, just move on.
He's starting to come back down to earth a little bit.
No,
but I don't care. It's not like, oh God, why don't we have Aaron Hicks? No, I'm glad he's gone. I genuinely do. So I wouldn't have cared if Brian Cashman went to another organization. That's why I don't care when I hear Michael Kay going, "Oh, Brian Cashman would be hired within 2 milliseconds." Fine. Go ahead.
Go fuck the organization.
It's just, I'm done. It's okay to move on. We can move on. We should be able to move on.
It's really, it's just head scratching the way that it's rinse and repeat. We're going to get the same thing every year. Is anybody expecting the offense to automatically wake up tonight? No. If they put up 2 runs, I'll be like, hey, all right. Better than the last game. I have the optimism that the Yankees can figure this out. I just don't see the road to that just yet. Like, there's no light at the end of the tunnel right now. Eventually that day will come. I just don't know when. And it's very hard to sit and sit through these games, or go to the stadium where people go, "Well, just stop going." What's the point? They're still making, because your ticket sales are going to break the Yankees. No, they're going to make their money regardless. And I'm not a fan of boycotting the stadiums to begin with. Look, if you want to go, I don't care. I'm still going to go, and I'm going to go say that, I was able to go to the Yankee game. I'm going to want to walk through, and see the field. Watch the uniform that I rooted for my entire life. I am not just going to go. I can't just flip that switch.
Yeah.
I mean, if people are able to, I'm not going to criticize it. I just can't do it. I'm still looking to go, all right, with them playing this bad, tickets are kind of pretty cheap, on the secondary market. So I might go to a couple extra games just because it's not going to break my bank. It's not going to take away from, my.
That's true. I was still going to Yankee games when they weren't going to the playoffs for a couple of years. I mean, it doesn't mean that you stop rooting for your team.
Yeah.
And that's why that's another criticism I would say was when Hal said, "Oh, the fans could show us in ways in which if they're unhappy." I mean, just because the stadium is full doesn't mean that we're happy, right? It just means that we're rooting for our team, right? Doesn't mean that there shouldn't be change, and there should be change. And Tats, just to answer your question, who's the light at the end of the tunnel? Aaron Judge is your only light at the end of the tunnel. But the problem is there's too much pressure on him now, right? He is basically their lifeboat, okay? We've crashed into the iceberg, and we're sinking. We're sinking fast, okay? Without Aaron Judge, we're going to sink to the bottom of the freaking ocean. Okay? Aaron Judge is your lifeboat, right? If Aaron Judge comes back in August, he'll get you the last wild card spot, something around that. Okay? That doesn't mean it's a long-term answer when you put that much pressure on one guy. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Aaron Judge should never be your lifeboat. He should be the guy that's help to carry you to the promised land. He ain't your lifeboat just to keep you above water. That is a huge indictment on Brian Cashman. A huge indictment on Brian Cashman. It's that simple. It's the best analogy you can make for what Aaron Judge is. He's the Yankees' lifeboat. He is everything. And that's an embarrassment that the Yankees have put it all on him because they can't do anything to do anything right.
No, it's just frustrating. I think that's it's depressing to watch. You know, you want to. It's like that scene, at the end of The Incredibles. Where you got the little kid on his little tricycle, and they're like, "What are you waiting for?" And he's like, "I don't know, something amazing, I guess." That's how
I like that.
Yeah. That's how being a Yankee fan feels right now. We're just waiting for something to happen.
That's true.
But that is going to wrap things up for us tonight. Maybe tonight we will see something amazing. Who the fuck knows? Maybe Stanton will actually get a hit.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll get 2 runs. Wow, that's freaking amazing.
A crooked number would be a good start.
Yeah. 3 runs. Oh.
I want to thank everybody in the chat. Davey, TC, Jonathan, Li, Jigga Man even showed up and made an appearance. We always appreciate him. And as always, hit that like button, share this video out, hit the subscribe button, and wear your pinstripe pride and play hard.